I'm not afraid to admit I've got a bit of a crush on the Panzerkampfwagen V Panther. In my honest opinion, it is the best looking tank of the war, and I was quite excited to meet this one when I went to TankFest this year. Since I came back, I've been trying to play them in game, and I've made some rather interesting and controversial discoveries. Which ones? Well, let's find out in the second episode of War Thunder Classics. The story of the Panther begins with Operation Barbarossa and the Germans' first encounter with the Russian T-34. Being used to converted bread boxes as tanks, the concept of sloping your armor to make it more effective left them all scratching their heads, so they decided to build a T-34 of their own. No, seriously. Daimler-Benz's VK3002 prototype looks extremely similar to the Soviet counterpart. The tank was rather narrow, which limited the turret ring diameter and, as a direct consequence, made it rather difficult to fit bigger guns. After some redesigns by both Daimler-Benz and MAN, the Panther was born. Featuring the Tiger I's engine on a much lighter chassis, a high-velocity gun with even more penetration power than the Tiger's 88mm cannon, as well as strong armor, the Panther is considered to be one of the first examples of the main battle tank idea. Contrary to what you may think, it wasn't even that expensive either. It was just a tad bit more expensive than the much older Panzer IV, but still less than half the price of one Tiger I. Quite cost effective. Sadly, the first batch of Panthers, renamed Model D, were rushed into production and suffered reliability issues as a direct result. As the war and the Panther models progressed, the tanks got more reliable, although the armor suffered in quality due to the lack of alloys. In spite of all of this, the Panther left its mark in history with over 6,000 units built, and continues to foster heated discussions between Wehrabus as to whether it was the best tank of the war or not. In War Thunder, the Panthers are represented in quite a varied choice of models. In the German tech tree you have the Panther D and Ersatz M10 or Ersatz M10 at rank 3 and battle rating 5.7, with the models A, G and F at rank 4 and battle rating 6.0. I've done a video comparing the stats and explaining the differences between all of the Panther variants a long time ago, and you can find a link to that in the description and in the info card above. In short, the Panther A is the best overall model, with the Ersatz M10 and the Russian captured T5 both being based on the Panther A. In the background you'll mostly see gameplay of the Panther A and the Ersatz M10, although the general characteristics and tactics apply to pretty much all of the Panther variants. Small deviations only really occur on the Panther A and the Panther F. The Panther A has the fastest turret traverse and as such is the best for CQB brawling tactics, and the Panther F has a different turret design and a faster reload than all the other Panthers. With the general characteristics out of the way, let's see how the Panther performs in the holy trinity of tank warfare: the armor, mobility, firepower triangle. The Panther series has a large upper frontal plate with an effective thickness of around 120mm, surpassing even the Tiger I. Unless facing very high caliber guns or APDS, little can defeat this plate. And due to its size, the probability is high that it is hit instead of anything else. That said, there is a weak point in the hull machine gun mount. With only 80mm, pretty much anything you face can cut through there, but thankfully it is a rather small and hard to hit target. The lower plate is quite weak, only 50mm thick but angled. Generally speaking, most shells can go through it, but tend to get absorbed by the transmission and do little damage. High power APHE shells, however, can cause substantial damage to the crew this way. The turret is the main weak spot of the Panthers. Most have a rounded gun mantle which can bounce most poorly aimed shells quite easily, but since the plate itself is only 100mm thick and is made of cast homogeneous armor, further reducing the effective thickness, a flat hit results in a guaranteed penetration from pretty much anything you face. This is especially problematic with APHE shells from M4s, M18s and T-34s, which can often one-shot the Panther this way. That said, the Panther is one of the best examples of a tank that benefits greatly from the addition of bushes, as hiding the outline of the mantles can make it hard for the enemy to get a precise flat shot, buying you extra time to retaliate. The side and rear armor are mostly negligible. They're strong enough to withstand most AA fire up to 25mm caliber, but 37mm cannons and up can defeat the armor flat on at close ranges, especially on the flat lower hull side. One special note is the very weak top armor. With only between 15 to 17mm on the hull and the roof, most Panthers are actually quite susceptible to the American 50 caliber AP rounds fired from aircraft directly above. I myself have been killed in a single strafe from our Corsair, and given that there's a lack of any kind of roof-mounted machine gun, the Panthers can't really defend themselves against air attacks. The only exception to this is the Panther F, which boasts between 25 to 40mm of top armor, and as such is immune to 50 cal munitions. Despite being a rather large and heavy machine, the mobility of the Panther series is surprisingly good. The power-to-weight ratio of 15.5 horsepower per ton is almost identical to that of the battle rating 5.7 T-34-85, as is the identical top speed of 55 km/h. The stat card only tells so much though. So, I've done some more in-depth mobility comparisons between a fully upgraded Panther A and a fully upgraded T-34-85. The acceleration is quite similar. From 0 to 30, the T-34-85 takes 6.2 seconds, whilst the Panther A takes 6.8 seconds. Only just over half a second longer. Hull traverse is a grey area. The Panther A is capable of maintaining a third gear turn whilst turning, giving it a blisteringly fast 360-degree turn time of 10.1 seconds. Much faster than the 15.5 seconds of the T-34, which defaulted back to first gear. Simultaneously, the Panther series is able to use neutral turning on the spot, something that the T-34 can't do. This allows you to easily manipulate the hull in tight spaces, but also takes quite a bit longer than moving turning. Compared to the T-34's 16.7 second hull turn from stop, a Panther's neutral turn takes a whole 25.5 seconds to complete. It's definitely worth it getting into third gear before attempting to turn the hull in a Panther, given you have the space to do so. The final mobility test is one lap around the Tank Polygon Test Track. This track has a good balance of elevation changes and obstacles on off-road pavement, and can be used to compare the general mobility between two tanks. The T-34-85 is one of the most mobile tanks at this tier and was able to complete the course in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Surely the Panther can compete with that. To my surprise actually, it's not too far off. Yes, it is slower, at the lap time of 5 minutes and 7 seconds, but I was expecting it to be quite a lot slower. I did lose a lot of time in the slaloms where my Panther was stuck in 4th gear, where it would have turned a lot faster in 3rd gear. But even so, the Panther can hold a candle to the T-34-85 in general mobility, whilst having much better armor. That isn't the whole story though. The Panther benefits greatly from traveling on paved roads, and thanks to that I've been able to flank entire teams in city maps, and maps with long connecting roads. They never expect a German tank of all things to get there quite that quickly. There is one major drawback to the Panther though. They have a rather horrendous reverse speed of only 4 km/h. This can often mean death as you're unable to escape a firefight and get into cover quickly. Essentially, once you are around the corner, you're committed. Der Panzerkampfwagen V Ausführung D, A und G feature die 7,5 cm Kampfwagenkanone 42L70 with a base reload of 9.6 seconds. The notable exception here is the Panther F, which features the KWK-44. This gun retains the same ballistics and penetration power, but offers a faster base reload of 8.7 seconds. The reload of the KWK-42 is identical to that of the Tiger 1 and T-34-85, which Seems weird, given the lower caliber, but actually makes a lot of sense when looking at the performance of this cannon. This is one of the best guns at this tier, period. All Panthers come stocked with the best and only shell you'll ever need. The Panzerkampfwagen V 39/42 APHE shell with a muzzle velocity of 935 meters per second, an explosive filler equivalent of 29 grams of TNT, and a flat maximum penetration of 187 millimeters. In fairness, whilst having only a third of the explosive power of the Tiger I's base shell, the Panther's rounds travel much faster and offer much higher penetration, even on angled surfaces. This gun can even deal with Sherman jumbos by shooting the top half of the upper frontal plate at close to medium distances, just like the Russian 85mm guns. Up to your own battle rating, there isn't really much that can withstand this gun, and it's only against 6.7 heavies from the front that you really start to struggle. Even then, the high muzzle velocity and accuracy allows you to aim for weak spots decently easily. That said, thanks to the good mobility, you can play in a way that allows you to flank the enemy. And apart from the T95 Doom Turtle, nothing can withstand side shots from a Panther. Now, whilst the 29 grams of explosive filler may seem rather low, the APHE shell honestly does its job perfectly well. You aren't always going to be one-shotting everything, but any penetration is going to hurt them badly, and center mass shots tend to take out even the biggest of tanks. Going for crew and ammo racks is how the Panther's gun gets its kills. There are two lineups you can make with the Panthers, one for 5.7 and one for 6.0. Contrary to intuition, I do not recommend the 5.7 one, but we'll get into that later. If you do want to make yourself a 5.7 lineup, you do want to find a decent balance. On the Tactory you only have a single Panther available, the Panther D. This one, however, has an extremely slow turret traverse and really should be played more like a tank destroyer than a medium tank. Any kind of close quarters engagement usually doesn't go well for you. If you have the Event Ersatz M10, take that alongside or even over the Panther D, as it's much better overall. As for supporting vehicles, you can bring one Tiger, although never spawn it first, as it costs too many spawn points and is much more useful late game when the enemy has already lost their best guns. A Panzer IV G or H serves as a decent backup, with the Waffenträger being useful in very long range and open maps with its long 88mm cannon. I recommend bringing both the Ostwind and the Wirbelwind for SPAA duties, but if you have to choose between one of the two, take the Ostwind since it can also act as a light tank destroyer. Speaking of, the Panzer 470 packs the same armor and gun as the Panther at the tank destroyer spawn cost, but it is also much slower and unsuitable for urban maps. If you have access to premiums, I also recommend bringing a Panzer II-H for its scouting and fast capabilities. As for aircraft, I recommend reserving two slots. One for a dedicated tank hunter and one for a fighter bomber. Tank hunters can range from Bf-110G2 to DOE 335 with 30mm Mk103 HVAP, although I fully recommend the premium DOE 335B2 if available due to the surplus of 30mm ammunition it can carry. For the fighter bomber role, Focke 190Ds are capable of carrying a 500kg bomb and plenty of ammo for anti-air duties, especially the premium 190D14, with the TAR-152C3 trading in a bomb carrying ability for an Mk103 in the nose. And for the love of God, don't bring Stukas. They're too slow, they're too easy of a target, you're going to get shot down by enemy fighters and SPAA. Don't bring them. Now, I said earlier that I did not like the 5.7 lineup, and here's why. Besides only having one or two Panthers available, you're setting yourself up for failure at 5.7. Generally speaking, getting down tiered in any tank is great news, but not so in the Panthers. I found more success getting myself up tier to 6.7 than down tier to 4.7 due to a couple of factors. One is the general mobility of tanks, especially the M18. Whilst the Panther is relatively quick, the M18s are the bane of your existence, and you're going to face them in hordes in down tiers, much less often so in up tiers. There's also more jumbos and T-34s to deal with, which might not be a big issue to your Panther, but are a huge problem for your teammates in the Panzer Force. I can't begin to count the amount of games I've had where I was doing perfectly well in my Panther in a down tier, but had the rest of my team completely wiped out. resulting in loss after loss. And this is why I strongly recommend forgetting about 5.7 altogether and instead going for a 6.0 lineup instead. A great part of the 6.7 lineup stays the same as before, especially the aircraft and the SPAA, but you can now swap the Panzer IVs and the Tiger Is, which are just hindering you, for a whole plethora of Panthers. In my personal lineup I've got the Panther A, F and the Asus M10, although you can swap that last one out for a Panther G if you don't have the event tank. And honestly, it just works. Now you both have a much stronger lineup and much stronger teams, since you're going to have King Tigers, Yak Panthers, IU-251s and Ferdinands and everything else to support. Now you might think that constantly getting up tier to 6.7 might be a problem, but the Panther is really one of the few tanks that shines in such a situation. All of a sudden you go from the very mobile enemy team composition of T-34s, M18s and more that were constantly outflanking you in down tiers, to slow, heavy tanks that you can easily outflank yourself and destroy from the side, whilst they are being engaged by the King Tigers on your team. Seriously, the amount of flanks I've gotten off, destroying entire offensives who were too busy slugging it out with my team's heavies, is absurd. And once those flanks have been dealt with and our King Tigers advance to the caps, the match tends to be over very quickly. Now, you might be tempted to push a little further and get some 6.3 tanks in your lineup with the Porsche Tiger and the Yak Panther, but I strongly suggest you do not do that for one simple reason. As long as you keep it 6.0, you can't face IS-6s. Those things will mess your Panthers and your teams up. Here's how your average match in a Panther should look. Given the medium tank spawn cost and the reduction for being up-tiered, even if you get one-shotted without getting a cap or a kill, you can still spawn in an Ostwind and rebuild from there. So, you should be quite aggressive. I tend to take with the Panther A as my first spawn due to its superior turret reverse speed, although the Panther F might also be a good choice due to its faster reload. On free cap maps, you can either take the cap that's closest to your spawn together with your team. Very important, you want to wait for your team to reach the cap. Doing so will facilitate spawning into a Dove 335 later, or you can take flanking routes and set up ambushes on anyone trying to go for a capture point. A perfect example of this is the game you're watching right now in the background, where it's set up to intercept multiple tanks who weren't expecting any tank to be in this position on their way to B. And I've quickly dispatched most of the initial attacking wave, as well as distracting any of the teammates behind who just saw multiple friendlies blowing up suddenly. This also allows your team to push up and get the cap advantage. Once the initial wave has been dealt with, stay sneaky. Make flanking enemy tanks your priority as they are the biggest danger to your team. Make sure to support your teammates by coming to their aid if you see them getting shots, and set up ambushes to prevent the enemy from capturing the zones. As I've mentioned, even if you do die early on, you still have an Ostwind to fall back onto from which you can rebuild. But getting a single cap and a kill is generally enough to spawn an aircraft. If it's very early in the game and the enemy hasn't gotten any caps off yet to spawn their own aircrafts, a Dornier 335 is the best choice, as it's incredibly potent at destroying lighter tanks that are flanking your team. If the enemy does have fighters up, a Fokker 490D with a 500kg bomb can be used to quickly take out a heavy tank or a critical target and then intercept enemy planes. Do keep in mind that the Fokker Wolves are energy fighters. You want to stay fast, you want to stay low, you want to stay unseen. If you get caught in a dogfight, you're dead. So don't try to return anything unless it's a bomber. The Panther is honestly one of the most enjoyable vehicles I've played recently. Especially so after I ditched the 5.7 lineup and embraced the MBT playstyle. A great combination of armor, mobility and firepower together with smart spawn point cost management make this a very potent tank in the hands of someone who knows map positioning and enemy weaknesses. I fully recommend using Panthers over any kind of Tiger 1, and you're going to see your stats improve in the long run if you do so. As a closing note, some recommendations on specific roles for each variant. The Panther D has the slowest turret rotation speed of the bunch, and as such is not such a great choice for close range combat. Use it like a fixed gun tank destroyer, kind of like a faster Yak Panzer 470 rather than a medium tank. The Panther A is the best brawler of the bunch thanks to its turret reverse speed. It's great for close quarters and long range alike, and it really is the most adaptable to any situation. The Panther G is somewhere in between the previous two, with a slight change to the gun mantled. The shot trap is removed, but the flat bit of armor at the bottom actually can make for a larger target area that can be reliably penetrated by the enemy anyways. If you own an Asus M10, I recommend skipping this one and using the Asus M10 instead. Finally, the Panther F is best suited as a sniper. The turret traverse isn't quite as fast as the A, and the turret front, whilst it does present a narrow target, is flat and easily penetrable at close ranges. At long ranges, however, the availability of a built-in rangefinder and the faster reload of the gun make it great for quickly dispatching enemy medium tanks. One final note, I recommend unlocking tracks over the turret traverse mods on all Panthers. The tracks upgrade really helps with the overall mobility of the tank, which is especially important in close quarters. And that concludes our Classics episode on die Panzerkampfwagen V Panther mit 7,5 cm Kampfwagenkanone 42 oder 44 L70. I know, it's been over a month again. But I really want to get this right and spend quite a bit of time playing the tanks and the lineups to get a proper feel for the tank. This is about as in-depth as you're ever going to get from me. If you didn't know, I did go to Tankfest in Bovington earlier this month and gathered some footage. But I'm having some issues with my editing software to process it, so the video of that might take a bit longer. That said, I have been invited by Ryzen to go to Gamescom from the 20th to the 23rd of August in Cologne, Germany. I'll likely be hanging out around the Ryzen booth and might even do some official streams for them. So if you happen to be around the area, don't be shy and say hello. I know quite a few other Warframe YouTubers are also going to be there, so it's going to be a blast. In any case, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you did, I would actually greatly appreciate a like, given the time this took. I really rarely ask for likes these days, but yeah, this took a while to make. As always, my name's MikeGoesBoom, and thank you for watching.
You can lift your head up to the sky, take a deeper breath and give it time. You can walk the path among the lines with your shattered frame of mind. Or instead you could always stay. We can wait right here and play until somehow you can find